train. He got in about 2 hours ago. Before he actually meets with Donald Trump, Kim Jong Un will actually tour Vietnam and see firsthand how good diplomatic relations with the US can mean a thriving economy in a communist nation. Donald Trump is en route to Vietnam, but before leaving Washington, he lowered expectations and said he's in no rush to make a deal on denuclearization, just as long as there's no weapons testing. Let's go to Will Ripley, standing by now live in Hanoi for more on this. So Will, I guess we've gone from the greatest, most spectacular summit, going to save the world, to now, well, as long as they don't test anymore, things will be okay. That's some lowering of expectations.
Yeah, I mean, because they may not be testing them, but they still have all of them, and they might even have more than they did at the beginning of this diplomatic process. When you're talking about, nuclear bomb fuel, certainly, according to a number of analysts and intelligence experts. But clearly, the Americans have come to realize that what a lot of analysts have been saying ever since Singapore, that North Korea is not going to denuclearize completely in a matter of months or probably even years. It's going to be a very long process, an incremental step-by-step process. And what we are seeing play out on the ground here, yet again, the North Koreans are calling all the shots. Talk about Kim Jong Un. He didn't want to fly here, perhaps because his planes couldn't make the journey, perhaps because he didn't like the optics of landing at another summit in a plane borrowed from China, or perhaps because he wanted to follow in the footsteps of his grandfather and predecessor, the North Korean founder Kim Il-sung, who last visited Vietnam, taking the train trip through China back in 1964. We know that Kim is now in a car, headed this way. They've closed down all the roads on the entire route, which is incredibly disruptive to traffic, to get Kim Jong Un here by his preferred mode of transportation. The Vietnamese also said that he could come by helicopter if he wanted to. And then, of course, there is the media feeding frenzy that is the Melia Hotel. I was just there a little over an hour ago. I'm now standing at a safe distance, but we left our cameraman, Brad Olson, still in the thick of things. There is a huge and growing crowd of reporters there, cameras, crews from all over the country. Some 3,000 journalists descended here trying to catch a glimpse of Kim Jong Un as his caravan rolls up. His security service has been there for a couple of days. The Vietnamese army was there doing a bomb sweep. And the U.S. press corps, which just so happened to also be based at the Melia up until about an hour ago, when they were told to get out. Because clearly Kim Jong Un didn't like the idea of walking into a hornet's nest with a bunch of American reporters. That probably goes down, John, as the knuckleheaded move of the summit so far. Who thought that it'd be a good idea to put Kim Jong Un in the same hotel as an entire group of American reporters? But that's exactly what happened. And guess who has to move out now? The U.S. reporters. How does that bode for the negotiations coming up with President Trump over getting rid of nuclear weapons?
An interesting sign of perhaps, how detailed the organizations and preparations have been ahead of the summit. As for Brad, he's big, tall, hearty and Canadian. He'll be fine. There are a lot of unknowns heading into the summit. For example, it's not known if the US president has read or plans to read his briefing materials. Another unknown deals with Trump's plan to offer economic incentives and to encourage American investment in North Korea. But that would expose those companies to legal jeopardy. There was a law passed in 2017. Basically, Congress would have to repeal that law, or it means North Korea would have to address human rights abuses, and human rights have not been on the table at all.
Absolutely not going to be brought up at this summit. Donald Trump has made clear that his #1 priority is denuclearization. And so at this point, would the Americans be happy just to get a list of North Korea's nuclear assets? Or perhaps North Korea will agree to start taking steps, such as inspection of its key nuclear sites, like the Yongbyon nuclear reactor, inspection, verification. Maybe Kim Jong Un will acknowledge some of the, facilities that have been kind of a not very well kept secret. The U.S. knows about them, highly enriched uranium, for example. Perhaps North Korea will acknowledge their existence. But it's going to be baby steps here. And again, in exchange for those baby steps, North Korea is going to expect quite a bit. South Korea's Blue House also dropping a